Welcome everyone to the Pandas section exercise lecture, and in this lecture we're just going to have an overview and explanation of the dataset and the exercise questions. In the next series of lectures we'll actually go through and explain the solutions. Before we head over to the Jupyter notebook that contains the exercise questions though, I want you to keep things in mind, and those few things are that most questions in this exercise can actually be solved in just one line or even just two lines of Pandas code. And actually most of them, the vast majority, can be solved with just one single line of Pandas code. Keep in mind you don't need to solve it in one or two lines as long as you get the expected output, but I would encourage you to push yourself and see if you can figure out the Pandas syntax for a single line solution. You should also note that there could be multiple correct solutions. Due to the flexibility of Pandas, you can actually figure out the expected output in more than one way. So don't worry if you figured out a way slightly different than ours, as long as you're getting the same expected output. And also, if you want to see that expected output, be careful not to run the cell that's right above it. You'll notice that each exercise question has two cells, one that says code here and then one that's left blank. You should write your code in the code here and not run the cell above the expected output, otherwise it would clear the expected output. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. So let's hop over to the Jupyter notebook and do a quick overview of the exercise dataset and questions for it. Okay, here I am at the Pandas project exercise notebook. It's called 11-Pandas project exercise. And what we've done here is try to give you a really realistic situation. Often, when you're doing a consulting job with Pandas and Python, you're giving a really large data set that sometimes you have to clean or just answer questions about, and you may not have the correct domain experience to fully understand the data. So often you're given a really large data column reference with the variable, the type, the description, and then the source of it. So what we've done here is we've taken a real-world data set on hotel booking, and including information for a city hotel and a resort hotel. And it contains a lot of info such as when the booking was made, the length of the stay, number of adults versus children versus babies, the number of available parking spots, and a lot of more information. And you can check out the original source by the hotel booking demand datasets written by these authors in this particular data in brief publication. Okay, so keep in mind I also added a couple of more data points, including names, emails, phone numbers, and credit card numbers. Now, those personally identifying column informations, those are actually totally synthetic and is not real information on people. So the names, emails, phone numbers, and credit cards, we made those up, but everything else is real from the publication. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And then we have this really large data column reference. So what we're going to expect you to do is if you're ever trying to figure out what column you should be looking at for an exercise questions, you'll come and scroll back up here to the data column reference. And this is really to try to implement as a realistic of a task as we can. Often in the real world, you're given this very large sort of data reference that you have to keep going back to. So that's why you have this really large table up at the top of the notebook. So keep that in mind. You may want to kind of quickly try to immerse yourself and just get an idea of what kind of columns are available to you. Okay, so once you've taken a look at that, basically what you have here is a bunch of tasks that are in bold. And the very first task, this one's actually already filled out for you to just make sure that you load the data set correctly. And it's just importing pandas, reading in the CSV file, which is called hotelbookingdata.csv, and then checking out the head. So you just run these three cells. They're already filled out for you. And then you can see here the various columns, whether it was a resort hotel or this other option for the hotel, and then the is canceled, lead time, the arrival date month, and so on. So you have a lot of information there. And then all you have to do is answer the tasks, such as how many rows are there, or is there any missing data? And you'll notice there's one cell that says code here. That's where we expect you to run your code. Don't run the cell that is right above the expected output, otherwise it'll wipe it out. So just keep that in mind. So for all of these tasks, you see a code here cell and then the expected output in case you want to just check your solution as you're going along. In the very next lecture, we'll actually give kind of a detailed breakdown of the Pandas code for each solution. So you can keep going and you'll see that there's various tasks for you to fill out in bold here. Okay, and then at the very bottom, as you start answering more and more tasks, we've tried to sort the tasks from easiest to hardest. So as you go further into the notebook, they try to get more challenging. And then at the very bottom, we have this hard bonus task, which is to create a table for counts for each day of the week that people arrived. For example, 5,000 arrivals were on a Monday, 3,000 were on a Tuesday, etc. And here is the expected output. Okay, so something to keep in mind here is that I would not expect you to be able to do this just without any reference whatsoever. please feel free to reference both the previous notebooks as well as just a Google search or Stack Overflow to recall what methods you need to call here. This is not a test in memorization on all the Pandas methods. It's just a test on your understanding of being able to look up information on various Pandas skill sets and then apply them to a different data set. All right, coming up next, we're going to go over the solution to this exercise project. I'll see you there.